Yeah, I mean, Robert, we've been talking about it in the green room, in the commercial break. I mean, you've been around this game of journalism for a very long time. You've seen a lot of different iterations and eras of everything. Land breaking news earlier this week, I think it was on Wednesday, it came down that the Washington Post is going through these massive cuts in cutting their sports department, essentially entirely adding it to part of their culture department.
Hmm.
Kind of what did you make of this news, and how do you feel kind of journalism is at as a collective right now?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I'll tell you guys a quick story from an editor that I was talking to about this, and I was saying, man, that's really sad. These guys lost their jobs and everything. And he said, let me tell you something. He said, some of these journalists, and they're very good journalists. They make six figures, $200,000 a year, and they write maybe 3 articles a week. And he said, something, we can get AI to write 100 articles a week and pay somebody $60,000 a year, $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year to just edit it and make sure that it's all factual and go over it and save us this. And it was scary, to me. And I said, well, AI can't change the human voice or whatever and all that stuff. So you put in the right prompts, it can. And to me,
Yep.
it seems like we're in this era where if you're in sports specifically, it's more important that you're an influencer. It's more important that you can get engagement. It doesn't matter. Like, Colin Cowherd can come on and say, oh, no warm city teams have ever won the Super Bowl. And he didn't say that because he thought it was true. He said it because he was on with the Seahawks coach and he needed a good quote and he wanted it to go viral. And it's more important, at least in some of these back rooms, that you go viral for your hot take than you do anything of any intrinsic value. We see Shams, who to me is one of the most unproblematic people that I've ever met in media, getting slammed because of his Giannis reporting. But I'm sure that ESPN has trotted him out there every day as like, Giannis is a hot topic. Tell us something about Giannis. You got to say something about Giannis. What's going on with Giannis? He's just doing his job because that's what he's not independent anymore. He works for the machine, the hot take machine, and he has to do that. So while I'm definitely sad because I grew up in a traditional journalistic type of environment when I was going to college and everything, but I learned very quickly in this business that you had to be a little bit, off what the tradition was if you wanted to survive. I couldn't survive just telling everybody what happened in the game. I had to figure out a different angle to come at it. And if that meant, being a little more salacious in my headlines or my tweets or my social media, to make sure I can, pay my mortgage, that's what I did. And I think some people are a little bit stubborn about the change, and they're finding out the hard way what happens when you don't go along with that change.
Yeah, I have a friend named Jill Manuel who worked in media for a long time, worked in newsrooms. She's been a program director in TV and things like that. And she has this great thing over on LinkedIn where she talks about the fact that influencers now, media, like journalism influencers, not, Kardashian influencer type thing, but like media influencers, people that have been journalists are having so much success now in the Substacks of the world and things like that, that more people are flocking to those places to get their news and even in some cases sports. And we're doing it on our end, even with Sports Wrap Shorts. I mean, that's a big part of what we're doing with our brand. That's where people are getting their stuff now.
Look, you're more likely to see Drewski on a sports show than some kid that went to Northwestern and got a 4.0 and is trying to make his way up through. You Kai CN, I Show Speed. You see the NFL. They sent out a big press release about all of these quote unquote YouTubers that you can watch their channel, whatever, during the Super Bowl, right? Not watch, such and such journalist who scrapped up his money to come down to San Francisco and try. No, you can go watch because and ESPN just hired what I thought it was so sport-ish something. They called it. It's not about sports. It's about what women talk about in sports. And the lady was explaining what she does, and she says, "What I'm going to do is instead of talking about Matthew Stafford, I'm going to talk about how Matthew Stafford wife handles the handles of playoff week and stuff." Like, first off, I'm like, I've been doing stuff like that for the past 10 years. But anyway, that's ESPN and said we care more about Matthew Stafford's wife and what she's talking about than we do about Matthew Stafford on the field. And to me, it's just a signal that if the big brands are doing this, they're going to cut, and they're going to keep cutting. And look where the money goes. Look who makes the most money: Stephen A. Smith, Colin Cowherd. They bring in people like Cam Newton. Think about what Dan Orlovsky went through, trying to be that, and how that made him feel. But if you want, Pat McAfee, the Barstool guys. None of those guys are traditional journalists.
Nope.
But they're the ones that are making tens of millions of dollars, and that should be a signal to everybody.